What's good, you guys? You know who it is, man. It's your boy, Mr. Relentless Lex, and I'm back like I never left this mother. Yes, Sirski. Hello, somebody. All right, so, man, we have Aretha Franklin's secret, exposing her family, incest, secret childhood, and betrayal. Now, her father had a lot of skeletons in the closet, and it's been alleged that Aretha been actually impregnated by her own father, from what I've gathered. And this video is crazy. This is a not much, but a must, could be much bit to take on, but a must watch till the end. You guys make sure you're subbing up. We're on the road to 500,000 subs. We got a ways to go, but we'll get there. Shout out to the whole Relentless gang in the building. Merch coming this summer. I have a lot of exciting things coming, you guys. Just stay tuned. Make sure you're liking the videos, watch it to the end, and supporting as always. Thank you. Salute. RGL for Relentless Gang Forever. You already know what it is. Spicy.
So if there's one thing that we cannot deny, it's that Aretha Franklin was a legendary musician. And she was also a force behind the scenes during the civil rights movement, donating concert proceeds, posting bail for activists, hosting fundraisers, and using her platform to promote voting rights. She was a black woman who believed in black empowerment and who put her money on the line to do so. And she was not afraid of the FBI or anybody else. But behind all of this, a lot of people don't even know half of what she went through. Well, y'all have heard a bit of it from her mother, Barbara Siggers, abandoning the family when she was 6, then dying a few years later, leaving Aretha and her siblings to be raised by their Bible-thumping father, a prominent preacher, Rev Clarence LaVaughn Franklin. Y'all also know that she has 4 sons by 4 different men, one of them rumored to be her father, Rev C.L. Franklin's child.
Whoa. Yeah, I said the same thing. I just said that, bro. Daddy is sick psychopath, bro.
Aretha also dropped out of high school and often left her kids with relatives while she chased men and pursued her musical career. And she had a drinking problem that started in her early 20s, and she also went through horrible DV. But guess what? Apparently, all this is not even half of it, because there's allegedly a lot of things that y'all don't know about Riri's life that Detroiters are aware of. And it's so much worse than anyone could ever imagine. Well, best believe that people have been talking, and I've been taking notes. So how about we just get right into it? Okay, y'all probably know that Rev C.L. Franklin was one of the most popular preachers of his generation and was nationally known through his tours and through radio broadcasts, as well as through his recordings, as the preacher with the most powerful voice. Based on what I've heard, he was so powerful spiritually that church nurses carried smelling salts to revive worshipers who were so overcome to the point of fainting by the spirit brought on by the sermons.
Wow, bro. Church workers. Bro, the ushers got smelling salt to wake the church members up whenever they pass out, when they're overcome about the Holy Ghost or the Spirit. Wow, that's crazy. I've seen church members run around the church. I've seen church members cut flips in the church. But I've never seen a church member get passed out and woke up with smelling salt. Now, that's all new to me. That's crazy.
Whatever your mental attitude is has a lot to do with what you're going to be and how successful you are in your efforts.
But behind the cloak, the man of God had dark skeletons that impacted the lives of his family, and especially Aretha. Well, one of the things that really devastated Aretha as a child was the fact that her parents were having problems in their marriage, mostly because her father was a serial cheater. Like, this man would cheat on his wife openly, and the kids even knew what was going on. Eventually, their mom, Barbara Siggers, grew tired of the disrespect, ended up becoming pregnant with another man's son, and in 1948, when Aretha was 6, Barbara moved, taking Aretha's half-brother Vaughn with her to New York, but leaving CL and her children with him behind. Of course, the mom moving was a big blow to all the kids, but apparently it impacted Aretha more than anyone else, because she was a severely shy and withdrawn child who was especially close to her mother. And based on what her siblings said, after her mom left, she cried for days on end. Now, what was worse was that Barbara suddenly died of a heart attack not long after leaving them, and because of this, Aretha was a a traumatized child after that. Because it's one thing to have your mom move out of the house for reasons you don't understand, but it's another thing to have your mom die of a heart attack as a young girl who was so close to her mother. Now, other than the serial cheating, there have also been allegations that the Reverend also exposed his children to hard substances and even ran a ring himself. Apparently in 1979, when
See, that's, excuse me, that's the thing, you guys. That's why a lot of people don't look at church the way they used to look at church nowadays, because of things like this. This is shocking. This is very shocking. Whenever you're a preacher, you lead a congregation of people. You're supposed to lead them to the promised land, to the pearly gates of heaven. But instead of doing that, you have some pastors and some preachers and some phonies that's leading you straight to hell. That's where they're going. But that's why they make more than one Bible. Never put your faith in all man, the Bible declares. You have to read it. It's okay to be led by a pastor, but you have to read the Bible yourself and ask God for understanding, because the pastor's not always up to par like they claim to be. It's very tricky. It's very tricky.
he was attacked in his home, the story was that the guys who broke into his home were actually there to rob him of his money and dope. But he was at home at the time and exchanged fire with them and got hit. But guess what? It wasn't just about the Reverend sleeping around and exposing his kids to hard substances. This man has been accused of some of the most insane things involving children. Actually, in his biography, Singing in a Strange Land, there was confirmation that he impregnated one 12-year-old girl from his congregation. And as a result, he and his family were run out of town and they settled in Detroit. Hold on, that was not all of it. Allegedly, CL also picked several other young girls out to older men in the church. Also, allegedly, when it came to sleeping around, CL didn't discriminate, as he slept with both men and women. Yikes. Well, it also doesn't help that CL was good friends with Rev James Cleveland, an alleged closeted gay preacher who allegedly forced himself on dozens of his young male church members and infected many with AIDS before he died of AIDS-related complications himself in 1991. Allegedly. You know, some of these things were actually narrated by the Reverend's own children, and David Ritz wrote in his biography called Respect, The Life of Aretha Franklin, accounts from the children of how it got to the point where Saturday night merged into Sunday morning and sin met salvation at the crossroads of African-American musical culture, how the saints celebrated the love of Christ high on the Holy Ghost, but they were also high on wine and weed, and how the party people celebrated the love of...
Bro, hold on, how they celebrating the Holy Ghost the whole time they toe up. They on wine, weed, might be some cocaine. Man, Diddy, this stuff is going on with Diddy. Bro, they was using sex and drugs a long time ago, as you can see. The same thing that they're accusing Diddy of doing, they were doing a long time. That's sad. That's crazy. That is just crazy.
Flesh. For instance, he quoted Ray Charles saying, "In those days, I had a thing for orgies, but I had to be the only cat in the room with 2 or 3 chicks. Those gospel people didn't think that way. The cats liked it with the cats, and the chicks liked it with the chicks, and no one minded mixing it up this way or that. I got a kick out of seeing how God's people were going for it hard and heavy every which way. I was just surprised to see how loose they were." Ray Charles could see that. In addition, David also wrote that people also said that the ladies were the ones who threw themselves at the Reverend, and he quoted Irma saying, "My parents' relationship was stormy, and my father had a temper. I'd also be lying if I didn't admit that we certainly knew about my father's reputation as a ladies' man. We saw how women in church literally threw themselves at him. After I became older, I saw for myself that he availed himself of many of those women." By the way, this is something that Aretha also confirmed when she said in an interview that as children, they could certainly see that women were kind of aggressively taken off behind their father, and sometimes they could see it with the ladies sitting on the front pew with slits a little high and skirts a little short, and that kind of stuff. But you know what? None of this compares to the allegation that the Reverend also slept with his own daughter, Aretha, when she was literally just a baby, and even allegedly fathered her first child. Like, how much more messed up can a family be? No, there has never been actual proof that the Reverend fathered Aretha's first child, but in Aretha's biopic, we met her as a 10-year-old when her preacher father brings her downstairs to a party full of famous adults and asks her to sing for everybody. Then in another scene, we meet Aretha as a prepubescent prepubescent, preparing to go sleep in her bedroom. And an unnamed man enters, closes the door, that he'll be her boyfriend. Then we also see little Aretha in silhouette, obviously pregnant. But the biopic doesn't go into details as to who fathered her child when she was 12. Okay, I know that when 3 handwritten wills were discovered in Aretha's home after her death, including one in a notebook wedged between couch cushions, one of the wills stated that Clarence's father was Edward Jordan Sr., with whom Aretha also had her second son. The will clearly stated that Edward Jordan Sr. should never receive or handle any money or property belonging to Clarence because he had never made any contribution to Clarence's welfare, future or past. And the word never was even underlined twice for emphasis. Others have also suggested that the father of Aretha's first child may have been Sam Cooke, because they may have had a relationship when she was just 12 years old to his 23. And y'all know what that means, right? The details about what transpired between the two soul icons have never been confirmed. But Aretha hinted in the Sam Cooke Legends documentary that her father interrupted what was likely going to be a very intimate encounter. In the film, she recalled a time when she and her father were on tour and ran into Sam Cooke. She later went to his room alone, and she said, "I sat there on the side of the bed very innocuously, and we were just talking about the music industry and other artists and whatever else we were talking about, and the door was closed. While we were talking, the conversation took another turn." She said her father was looking for her, and according to her, just as things took this other turn, she said she heard him holler, "Aretha, I know you're in there." However, the general assumption has always been that the Reverend is the father of Aretha's first child. And here's where people came from. See, after Aretha first became pregnant at the age of 12 and gave birth to her first child, she named her child Clarence Franklin. In 1957, when she was 14, Aretha had a second child named Edward after his father, Edward Jordan. Her third child, Ted White Jr., was born in 1964, and he was also named after his dad. Aretha's youngest son, Keekalf Cunningham, was born in 1970 and is the child of her road manager, Ken Cunningham. Literally, everyone was named after their dad. So, what are the odds that the first child was also named after his dad? Pretty high chances, right? Plus, Detroiters have also sworn that Aretha did say she named all her children after their fathers. Well, one thing people noted is that whatever Aretha went through growing up affected her own relationships with men, because she always just chose wrong. I mean, she got married to Ted White at the age of 19, and according to sources, Ted was not a good man. He was a pimp who had multiple women as lovers, singers, and escorts. Basically, he was just using Aretha so he could reap the rewards of her success. And at the time that she was with Ted, everyone knew that Ted White was a brutal man. But Aretha always clung to this fairy tale storyline of a perfect marriage, and she wanted the world to think she had a storybook marriage until she couldn't take it any longer and ended up divorcing the man. So people have said that Aretha chose the type of men she did and made the bad decisions she made because of the way she grew up, not really having a mother figure around, and being raised by a womanizing, scandalous pimp preacher of a father who played games with God. And like I said, people who grew up in Detroit say that her situation was actually so much worse than what was put out. About the specifics, I personally do not know, but maybe they can let us in on that tea. Anywho, I also can't wait to hear from all of y'all why you think there are still gaps in Aretha's story. Do you believe her own father actually fathered her first child? Drop those thoughts in the comments.
Man, that's crazy. Now, anything is possible. Anything is possible, but if that's the case, man, her father is a straight sicko. That's crazy, bro. See, bro, I ain't gonna hold y'all, bro. I do read the Bible, but I don't go to church like that. I haven't been in church in a minute, to be quite honest. And it's because of things like this, bro. And it seems like it's still taking place. This is years and years ago with this situation. But the things that's going on, it's gotten worse, you guys. People acting like they have to have SMEX, S-E-X, in the church. It's like that's where most of the demons and stuff is at. If you want to find somebody to just play around with, go to church, bro. I'm just saying. That's where they at. It seems like they got more hot girls in the church than they do in the streets. Now that is just straight diabolical. I'm just saying.